one spoon territory. Thank you, Jay. So we'll do that land acknowledgement again. So Toronto is in the dish with one spoon territory, and the dish with one spoon territory is a treaty between the Anishinaabe, the Mississaugas, the Haudenosaunee that bound them together to share the territory and protect the land. Subsequent Indigenous nations and peoples, Europeans and all newcomers have been invited into this treaty, into the spirit of peace, friendship, and respect. I feel this one as an immigrant to the country. It's really wonderful to sort of be in a space like the School of Graphic Communications Management, which is a safe and open space where we respect one another. So that being said, what we're going to do today is we're going to start with some introductions of the people that you have available to you. And then we're just going to have a casual chat from there on in. So I'll start us off. My name is Natalia Lumby. My preference are she, her pronouns. And I'm the Associate Chair of the School of Graphic Communications Management. And I'm really glad to have a very fun mix of potential students. Maybe in the chat, you could let us know if you're thinking about GCM, maybe you're in grade 10 or 11 and joining us. Current students, some staff with us as well. And of course, our featured guests are alumni who are here with us today. Because he is here and probably wants to say hello, I'll throw it over to Martin Habercost, who he will tell you who he is, and then we'll get into our special guests.
All right, Natalia, now you put me on the spot here. So hi, everybody. My name is Martin Habercost. I'm the current chair of GCM, and it's nice to see some alumni here. To all I have a relation to. Alyssa was my research assistant. Germany, we worked together on many different projects. We went to Drupa or Interpack together. The same goes for Caitlin. We went to Drupa together. So it's nice to see you all back here. Nice to see your faces. And I hope you got good questions. And Marianne is also here. Hi, Marianne. Nice to see everybody here. It's all, and yeah, enjoy the session.
Thanks so much, Martin. I pinned you and I can't unpin you. Why? Why is Zoom doing this to me today? Normally I'm quite competent, but today is a fun day. Okay, why don't we pass it off to Jeremy, who's next on my screen. Now, so we have, in fact, before I let you speak, we have 4 alumni with us today. And so I'm going to ask you for a slightly longer introduction, if you will, because you are who everybody wants to know about. So if you can maybe when you take your turn, say hello, where you are now, and like a brief synopsis of, I graduated from GCM, I did these couple of things, and here I am now. That's the kind of sort of introduction. Anything else that you want to throw in there is absolutely fun to do as well. So Jeremy, why don't you start us off?
Awesome. Thank you very much, Natalia. It's great to sort of be back and see all these very familiar faces. And like Martin said, kind of throwing me back to some of the experiences that we got to have together. So it's awesome to revisit that a little bit and feel almost like I'm back in the School of Graphic Communications Management in a more meaningful way. So it's lovely to be back. So thank you for that. But my name is Jeremy Page. I have been with GCM for quite a few years. I was a part-time student for a good long while. But I've been kind of on a little bit of a roller coaster of a journey, doing things, trying, or rather to get my feet wet in as many ways as possible. And I think that in order to sort of lead into what Natalia was talking about what I've been doing afterwards, I really think that I need to start with my experience in GCM. And I think that a big part of what really made it so interesting to me was the amount of different student groups that there were in GCM. And being able to sort of network with industry within those student groups really led me to a lot of different opportunities where I had the good fortune to be able to become a sales representative for Flash Reproductions right out of school, which was a fantastic experience. And I'm very grateful to the whole team at Flash for putting me in that position where I was able to learn so much every single day and get mentored by amazing professionals within the printing industry. After that position, I actually kind of changed gears a little bit, and I went more into a project management kind of role. So my current role is actually more on the advertising agency side. So I work as the custom account manager for Brand Lab, which is the internal ad agency for Ensemble IQ. Those of you who are familiar with Derek Estu might know that Derek is one of my boss's boss within Ensemble IQ. So it's been lovely to sort of have him as a little bit of a mentor and a little bit of a sounding board from time to time. So it's really made the transition quite a bit easier in order to sort of have somebody that I can talk to and rely on in a little bit of a professional sense in that situation. So I think that it's been a fantastic experience so far, and just being able to sort of put to use all the different skills that I was able to gather through my time at GCM has been a fantastic time.
Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing. Caitlin, why don't you go next?
Hi, everybody. I am Caitlin Severon. My pronouns are she and her. I graduated GCM in 2016. The year I went to Drupa, best year ever. And I'm currently working as a project manager at SGS & Co. And my story is going to be a little boring because I've been with SGS since I was an intern. So I kind of started as an intern and then came back right after Drupa. And I've kind of been there since. So, but yes, I'm a project manager. I work with one big CPG company and another client that we're currently onboarding. And just over the years of being a project manager in the same place, there is growth, there's a lot of growth, and there's a lot of experiences. The company itself goes through a lot of transitions. They're pretty corporate, they're international. So I've seen a lot of different growth within the 6 years, I guess I've been there. Crazy to think I've been out of school for 6 years. I know. On Natalia's face, I'm like, it's been a while. But yeah, so they're doing, it's a big company, they're doing a lot. The most interesting thing I think I do on my daily is I actually co-chair one of the DEI and B groups at SGS. So that's diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. And it's something that a lot of corporate companies are doing just to give a voice to the more underrepresented groups. So I'm happy to say that I'm doing that, and I've been learning a lot from the other co-chairs. And if that's something you're interested in the future, make sure you ask about that from future employers, because it's something very special and it's something that's very needed.
Awesome. I'm definitely going to ask you some more questions about that in just a moment for sure. Very cool. Lisa, why don't you go next?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Elise Sandino. I use they, them, and she, her programs. I have a little bit of a weird journey where my first job after GCM was print related, and then it quickly veered into a different role. And it was interesting getting the email from Natalia for this talk, because I've switched gears again, and I realized that what I'm doing now is actually a lot closer to what we learned in GCM, but in a very different way. So I'll talk about that in a second. But basically, when I was at GCM, I was an intern for, as Martin mentioned, actually Martin, Natalia, and Chris in one summer, which was a really fun internship, and got really close with those three professors as a result, and that was really fantastic. And after that, I started working. I actually continued to be an RA throughout the school year with Abe as well, and then I worked part-time for a bit at a design agency, which ended up offering me a full-time position when I graduated. So my first job was at the Works Design Communications. So they specialized in sustainability and financial reporting and some branding as well. And that was a really cool first job, because it was a very small company. So I got to do a lot of different things as part of that, and try my hand at a lot of different things like copywriting, designing, project management, account management, all that different stuff. So I just do a bunch that kind of, it felt like I could do anything after that. And then a friend actually referred me to where I am today, which is I work at Rakuten Kobo. When I started there, I was a campaign coordinator, and I've had the really fortunate opportunity to experience a lot of growth in the company as a result. So I went from coordinator to specialist to team lead to manager, and then shifted gears completely and moved into product management. So before I moved into product management, I was managing a team of 6 people, kind of building out all the marketing assets for Kobo Global. And that was just such a special experience, building those skill sets over time and then taking that over to the product management side to where I am today.
Awesome. It's interesting to hear all the different opportunities that you could have within a single company or moving from company to company. We'll talk a bit about that as we go on. Okay, and last but not least, Marianne, tell us a little bit about you.
Hey everyone, my name is Marianne Brano. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a graphic designer and illustrator based in Scarborough. I graduated in the class of 2021, so just this last year, and I'm really excited to be back. What can I say about myself? Oh goodness. So right now I'm a graphic designer / brand designer for a tech startup based in Chicago called Hallow, which is essentially a prayer and meditation app. So it's kind of funny how I went to school for print and now I'm in a whole nother universe in like product design and brand management, things like that. But while at GCM, I was super involved in the community. I was involved with the course union, which is essentially like the student union at GCM. For the last 4 years. And in my 3rd year, when it was time for my internship, I worked really closely with the Gradle folks in the GCM office as the summer intern. And that's sort of where I knew I wanted to grow in. I really was interested in the design and creative side of GCM. And that really gave me the opportunity to, grow into my design skills as well as my interpersonal skills. I think that was a really great opportunity because, I was able to talk directly to people I would be working with for different projects, and also was able to educate in the same way because it was strictly virtual on Zoom. And now working for, a tech startup in another country, that's all that I do. I work from home. I stay at this little desk and I take my Zoom calls. That's where I was just before this. So sorry again for my tardiness. Basically, it was a really interesting summer, to say the least. I found this position. I started as a contractor in November of 2021, and now I'm working full-time, thankfully. We love those benefits as of end of March of this year. So it's been a very hectic last few months, a lot of growth, but also a lot of struggle as well. It's a good time to be a new grad. So yeah, I can't wait to talk to you more about my experience and just what it's like to be a designer out here.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. I think that part of the hardest, or one of the hardest ways to go out of GCM is sort of when you leave the immediate print industry or the typical companies that take our students, then you're all alone, right? You have to sort of navigate the path without the typical crew with you. So it's a bit of a steeper growth journey in some ways, but Marianne, you'll be like on the other side laughing in no time, I'm sure. Okay, so I have a whole bunch of questions for you guys, but of course, bye Martin. I have a bunch of questions for you guys, but of course this is open for anybody to ask questions as well. We have sort of like 40 minutes together. So if anybody's got a question for anyone, any one of our alumni specifically, you can just pop it in the chat and I'll read it out so that I don't, dominate your time. Maybe you have some specific things you'd like to know about, but let's get going. So my first question is going to be for Caitlin. Caitlin, you have a very sort of typical route that you've taken coming out of GCM. So it's very common for our students to be employed with their internship employer. It's very common for large companies like SDS to be interested in GCM students. So I was hoping sort of you'd break down what your day looks like, what a client looks like, because it's sort of like the most probable avenue, and then the rest of you have very unique paths, so we'll talk about that next.
Yeah, you're right. I was very fortunate to not have to go through job fair the last year. I was kind of just sitting and watching everybody frantically look for jobs, which now I think about it, I kind of wish I had like the extra push, because that is like that last year was the number one to just prepare us for trying to get a job. There's a lot of other programs don't do that, and I think that was one of the best things that we actually learned, is just applying yourself and getting those jobs. But yeah, I started as a project manager, and one of my clients is still the client that I started with. And at the time, since it's an international company, there's a lot of movement. So sometimes they switch sites. Thankfully, the Toronto campus is the biggest, I think, in North America, and it's kind of a hub. So it's really good to be in that spot because some of the CEOs work from there and a lot of the executive members work from there. But my day-to-day, so my main client is a big CPG, which is a consumer goods packaging client, and it's craft for US. And a lot of that is basically going on pre-pro calls, answering emails. Like, I'm the liaison between the on-site and production. So it all kind of funnels through me and it funnels out through me. And I start with the life cycle starts with pre-production and it ends with giving a print ready file for the printer. And we work with many printers and many designers. So kind of like the center of that, and SGS is the one that makes sure they're the ones that make sure the file is ready, and they're the ones that get the blame if it's not. So it's a bit frantic sometimes. Even though I've been a project manager the whole time, there are levels in the organization and you see it, because at one, you might not be super sure, like just trying to, put your feet in and trying to tell people that you actually learned stuff in school and that you're just kind of doubting yourself because you're new. And sometimes sometimes it's like you have to just know the people and you get lucky, right? Like a lot of the part of enjoyment of a job is people you work with. And I've seen a lot of interns go by and their experiences vary from which team they're put on. So I guess mine was okay because I'm still here. But over the years, they kind of trust you more, and then they give you more responsibilities, and they put you in like certain initiatives. Like I know one of the grads that graduated with me and are still at SGS, Leanne, went to Mauritius to train the new site, and that's pretty cool. She was there for, I think, 4 months.
Which is tropical for anyone who doesn't know where Mauritius is. It's a beautiful location.
Their hotel room was really nice. So that was really cool. So there's stuff like that. Like we have campuses in the Philippines, Mexico, Mauritius, like Europe. And there's also different sectors. So there's design, we're pre-press, but there's also some 3D. 3D is really hot right now. And then they're doing some other types of marketing. So they're breaking into that. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. Project management might not be for everybody, but it's just in your company. It varies by company and what they do and what your clients are. Yeah, so you just have to just find new opportunities inside if that's where you're planning on staying. And like I said, the whole DEI and B stuff, that's the thing that's really hooking me right now. And that's what I'm using to network and also just learn from everybody else who manages those groups, because a lot of them are directors. And then we'll see where we go from there.
Okay, very cool. And just one more question about sort of the day-to-day. So craft obviously is a big client, but just so everybody gets like the scope of the role, on an average day, how many projects for craft are moving through you? So you're the middle manager sort of the files, of the jobs. How many would you say are you dealing with every day?
On a good day, maybe like 1 or 2 new projects. And sometimes we're just focused on, it depends on the brand, because we own our own brands. We're not really delegated certain tasks and whatnot. Like I own food service, cheese, dessert. So like whenever something comes in for that, like they can all be awake 1 week and then some of them can be dead. So you hope for balance, but you don't always get it. So, but yeah, and then sometimes you really have to delegate some of your work because you can't manage everything, but it's really hard when you like really own something and then you try to tell somebody, oh, I'm giving this to you now and you have to do it this and this way. So yeah. And then the other client I'm doing, actually, it's a new onboarding client, and that's more client facing and a little bit more challenging because our workflow with craft is so secure. Like we've been working on it for 6 years, and then the new one is it's all new and they're smaller. So it's a different monster.
Yeah. Bringing a new client on is always a challenge because they're used to whatever they used before or nothing at all. Those are the only 2 options when new people come to your company, right? Okay. And now I want to sort of switch gears to like a different experience, if you will, because Elisa, you pretty quickly, I would say, got into the managing of people, which is in some ways, for some of us, the ultimate GCM path, right? So a third, at least, of what we teach you guys is management, and that's an important component. So tell us a little bit about what that's been like. Like, what has it been like to be young, have a team? Have you used the skills? Tell us that journey.
I've definitely used the skills. It was very good to have that foundation and to understand what you're actually doing. And actually, and I would say it wasn't like what you learned in school was good as a basis hypothetically, but also I would say just the group stuff, just the dynamic of GCM as a student body and working with the professors so closely. I think that's actually what was most helpful for taking this on so quickly, because I think what GCM does really well is like there's it's not very super hierarchical in like the way that you learn. It's very collaborative with the professors, very small groups. So you're able to speak up, you're able to share ideas and establish a relationship of trust with people like your professors, with your peers, those group projects that you do where you simply need to trust and work together. I think that was actually the most important thing, to be able to manage people, because you could delegate all you want. What you need to be able to do at the end of the day, if you're managing people, is have and establish relationships of trust with your reports. Otherwise, nothing's going to get done, because you'll hit a ceiling. People are choosing to work at a certain place. They want to care about what they're doing. They want to do it with people that they care about, and creating collaborative spaces where you can trust each other, where you can bounce ideas off of each other and trust that each other is going to run with what they're responsible for. When it's stressful, that we'll have each other's backs and that sort of thing. I think that was most important for actually managing people at the end of the day.
I love that answer so much, because everybody complains about group work, right? Like, it's so difficult to get a group project through, and sometimes your heart just, and then you get out in the real world and it is exactly just that, isn't it?
Work is just group projects.
Over and over.
Yeah,
it's true. And not everybody's a team player.
No.
Okay, that's great advice. That's really great advice. We do pay attention to group work quite a bit, and we do know that that's the environment that you guys will be working with. And now this new sort of post-pandemic life, the other thing that's been happening is this online environment. Marianne, tell us, what has that been like for you? Are you full-time working from home?
I am. I work full-time from home. I work with a lot of people who live in different time zones. So that's another barrier and a little tricky thing that I've had to learn to deal with. I work with, I work with coworkers anywhere between like 3 hours behind to 12 hours ahead of me. So it's really trying to find a balance between, should I be up at this hour, or should I be working up until this hour, in order to, meet the needs of everyone that needs my help or needs my design work. So I think, graduating in the midst of a pandemic sort of prepared me for this life of, sitting at my chair, taking Zoom calls, being professional from the bottom up, from the top up. And I think it's just a really interesting environment that is going to be more and more common in future years, especially as, companies are more open to hiring international workers. I think I was really lucky in that I live only like a few hours away from Chicago, where our headquarters is, because I have that rapport with my coworkers. Like, there's not a huge cultural barrier between, my coworkers and people that I'm directly working for and with. I think when it comes to the day-to-day tasks, it's also really interesting because I work for a startup. So I don't work the typical 9 to 5 hours. I can work anywhere between like 8 a.m. or like 10 a.m. to like 9 p.m. or sometimes 1 a.m. if we're really strapped for time. And,
You're not selling that startup life
yeah.
right now.
But to be honest, it's like it's the most exciting and rewarding thing at the same time, because I really care about what we do. And so does everyone on my team. I think we started off with like 40 people when I first started. Now we're at like 60. So it's just really inspiring to see a group of people just really love what they do and be willing to put in that much extra time and effort into it. Sorry if I'm not selling the startup life so well, but I think it's really interesting because I know like friends who work in corporate and they get to work their 9 to 5. And I honestly think startup life is so much cooler. Sorry, but I'm biased.
I mean, you should. I hope you do, right? Because in that sense, that's the life you're choosing, right? So there's always going to be a cup of tea for one and a cup of tea for another, and they're going to be so different. For you, maybe coffee, though.
Definitely. But it's nice, finding that balance between what you want to do and what you don't want to do. I think early on in like GCM, I knew that I wanted to work for a startup. I wanted to be able to have, the creative freedom to build a brand and make it what it really is. And that's what I do now. I'm like a part graphic designer, part brand designer. So while I'm creating assets for things that represent our company right now, I'm also working towards building the brand for what it could be in the future. So it's a very interesting time to be, a designer in this startup life and also in this pandemic life where everything's online and everything's going a million miles per second. So
yes, yeah. Okay, I'm going to come back to you a little bit about that graphic design life, because I know it's one that interests a lot of students coming into GCM. But before we do that, Jeremy, tell me, so I would say the way that I experienced you as a student is I always thought that you would probably own a business, which you did when you were a student in some ways, right? You had your tea thing. I don't know why we keep talking about tea today, but here we are. I want to hear a little bit about like how you're flexing those entrepreneurial muscles in the role that you're at now. I know in sales you would have been. So just like what that's like for you, that side of your personality on a day-to-day.
Fair enough. I think that's a tough question because you're right. It really has to sort of fit the box that you're currently in. But when I was in that sales role, it was a great opportunity to sort of really get out there and understand a little bit more about the hows and the whys that start any of these projects and any of these print initiatives that we would see. And working for Flash in particular, being so focused on specialty print and so focused on things that hadn't ever been done before, I think was really interesting in that sense because there was a lot of ideation involved and there was a lot of creativity there. So it wasn't just trying to compete on price or trying to compete on timeline or something like that. You had to really be out there and be part of your client's creative team in a really interesting way, where they were trusting you to sort of be the guide on whether something was possible, whether something was within their scope and within their budget, and how you could elevate their idea when you're sort of translating that digital or idea into a physical thing, which was always super exciting. And I think that it's difficult to translate that directly into what I do now, because what I do now is very much coordinating a couple different teams where we have a team of freelance journalists, we have a team of freelance designers who work with us to really put together a lot of custom work. So I think that the thing that is sort of the through line there is it's all about things that haven't necessarily been done before. And it's all about sort of figuring out what the core issue is and what the core objective of your client is. So I think that's been a very fun part of my experience, is that all of the projects that I work on are so different, and everything that we do is something that hadn't been done. And I think that being able to sort of have a team that you can rely on in that sense and bounce ideas off of, it comes back to the collaboration that was mentioned earlier, is just so incredibly important, because realistically, nobody can do it alone. And being able to sort of both rely on the skills of others, but also figure out how you best lift each other up, I think is just incredibly important.
I definitely see that entrepreneurship train still within your current role today, because for sure, every time you're approaching a new project, is that ideation phase, right? Like that is the serial entrepreneur trade in many ways, that's starting something new.
It's sort of funny how you mentioned earlier that when it comes to workflow, the clients either have none or they're very, very set in their ways and there's kind of no in between. And I find that it's very much the same when they approach kicking off a custom project, So we'll have our kickoff calls, we'll have the whole creative team on board, we'll have the client side, we'll have sales involved. And sometimes it's really just a slog to get to the core of it all and to figure out exactly what they want. But it's always productive to sort of have those kind of harder conversations once in a while, because everybody walks away from it having a greater understanding of what the actual objective is at the end of the day, and being able to sort of, I guess, chip away all the stuff that would detract from it. So I think that you're right there.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think anytime you spend some time with a project right at the outset, you elevate the possibilities in a way that you wouldn't if you just head into your work and do your thing every single time the same way.
Absolutely.
Okay, I want to sort of switch gears just a little bit and talk about each of your sort of times and experiences at GCM. And we've got a really great question from Amanda about minors and concentrations. And so maybe we could sort of go around again, and you could tell us your minor if you did one, your concentration if you did one, and then maybe like a most memorable thing about GCM, just to sort of refocus to the school as opposed to life after graduation. Maybe Elisa, we'll start with you. You're totally allowed to say that working with me on a project was your absolutely favorite thing you ever did.
Wow, now I can't look. I was gonna say it, and now it feels.
I paid her already.
Fake, Natalia. I'm just kidding. The first part, the minor in concentration, I don't think when I was in GCM we had the concentrations, but I did do a minor in entrepreneurship and innovation, which was really fun. And I got to, I think through that, Ryerson is such a small, Toronto Metropolitan. It's such a small community sometimes that like the network is really fantastic. And I think through that, but it might've been through Natalia, through Chris, through a bunch of things, but I ended up working a lot with the Brookfield Institute of Innovation and Entrepreneurship at their beginning, because they were just starting up in 2016, I think. So they reached out to me to help design a bunch of things. And that was one of the cooler organizations I've ever worked for, to be honest, because they pump out a lot of really great research and really great reports on everything around innovation and entrepreneurship, and learned a lot about what it takes to run things, what the future of work looks like. And it also helped connect me to, like, since I left GCM, I've also been and stayed a freelance graphic designer. And most of my clients have been through that one specific job, because it filtered a bunch of startups and companies in their infancy. So that was really great. Yeah, my favorite part of GCM was actually my internship. Honestly, it was because I admittedly I don't think I took advantage of GCM as much as I should have in my first few years in the program, but it was during the internship, because it works so closely with 3 different professors. It felt like I got a lot more engaged with the program after that internship. Was able to do a lot of really cool things through making those connections. Like I think, Natalia, you recommended me for working with Abe on that research project afterwards. I got to do some really cool things and do that project and go to Calgary together with you and Abe and meet with a company there. And it led to that job with the Brookfield Institute. Yeah, I let Chris let me run a lecture at some point, because the research that we did during that internship was directly tied to the curriculum he was teaching in 4th year. So it was cool to be a student, but also be a lecturer for that class for a day. So it just, yeah, it got a lot more close to my heart after that internship. I got to know a lot more of the professors, build those relationships, and then become a lot closer to the program and really get invested in it too. So it was really a turning point for me.
Yay. I swear I didn't pay anybody. Okay, you're right, but I think you're right. Engaging in whatever program you end up in is so important. It's so easy to go through a program and just go through the motions. And I say this because in many ways, for a large majority of GCM, as a GCM student, I did that because I worked like 30 hours a week. I just didn't make the time. And so it's great to have those experiences. Maybe Marianne, we'll go to you next, because you were also exceptionally engaged. Am I right remembering that you were the CU president?
I was,
Okay.
yes, I was on the course union for 4 years. I was really involved in student life, and that's just because I really love the community at GCM, from the professors to the lecturers to just the students in general. I knew that this is a community that not only cared for me, but I also cared for. And so to be able to see, students who are so shy in like the first few weeks of school come up to me and say, hey, let's hang out, let's grab some coffee, I think was just phenomenal. And I think that is definitely my biggest accomplishment. Also, like the thing that I'm most proud of at my time at GCM, just being able to see student life grow and flourish. And that's what sort of led me to my internship with Tanisha, who I know is on this call. I don't know if she can hear me, but I was the intern in my 3rd year going into my 4th. And that was also a really memorable moment, just because I had, for the first 3 or so years, been working behind the scenes with student life. But then in my internship, it gave me the opportunity to like create work for incoming students. And that's something I didn't have the opportunity to do in the past. And so, yeah, the student life is really what sold GCM for me. I think everyone, oh, I love you too, Tanisha. This is such a heartwarming time. But yeah, like in my first few experiences with GCM, they were sort of that initial, like, oh, is this for me? But then I think it was, the professors that really took it upon themselves to get to know me and to take my work and to take my life into consideration that really sold it for me. And that's, I think, my favorite thing about GCM. It's just like the GCM family is so unique and you can't find that anywhere else at TMU. It's so weird to say TMU, but it's true. You can talk to anybody who's an alumni, a grad, a current student at GCM. They'll say the same thing, like the community is amazing.
And Marianne, will you remind us did you do a concentration or a minor? Did you do either of those?
I did. Sorry,
That's okay.
walked away from the question a little bit.
No.
My concentration was in publishing and my minor was in communication design. So that was like the newest minor at the time. Yeah.
Yeah, I got, so I was on the team that created that minor, and I love it so much. For GCM students, it's such an incredible minor. I'm always like, this is it, this is the minor, depending of course on what you want to do, but for designers, it's a really good one for sure. And publishing is one of 4 concentrations. So for those of you on the call who aren't familiar with the program, we have publishing, packaging, leadership, and digital output. Those are the 4 options, and they sort of go on your transcript. It's not like doing a second major, it's just focusing some of your coursework in a specific area. Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Now, I don't know if I remember this correctly, but Jeremy, I remember you started the year that we had still sort of our old curriculum and then held back so that you can do a concentration. Am I remembering that correctly?
That's true, actually. So I started GCM, I think it was a long time ago now. Let me date myself real quick. I think it was 2015, 2014, something around there. Either way, long time ago. It was in the old curriculum. And I remember listening in on the presentation towards the end of my first year when they were talking about doing a little bit of a revamp, doing a little bit of a modernization in a couple of ways. And one of the main things that was incredibly interesting to me at the time was the addition of those concentrations. So I ended up speaking to the chair at the time and having a couple really long, hard thinking sessions with myself to see what I wanted, because I knew that after dipping my toe in GCM for that whole first year and really, really enjoying it, I knew that I wanted to sort of be part of what this new little bit of uncharted territory was. So I requested that I could re-enroll in the program so I could be part of the new curriculum instead of continuing on the path through the old curriculum. Funny enough, though, I didn't actually end up doing a minor or a concentration, which take it as you will. But with that, I think that my experience as a student in GCM is something I have been incredibly satisfied with and incredibly fulfilled by, because being able to sort of approach it from the standpoint of looking at it for what's best for me, I really decided to throw myself behind student groups and to sort of get as involved as possible. And the only one that I really wasn't involved with was the course union. So I was never really part of CU very much. But during my time at GCM, I was fortunate enough to serve as the director for the School of Graphic Communications Management on the RCDS board of directors, which was an amazing opportunity and really, really sort of tickled that itch for me to know how things work behind the scenes. I think that that's something that's always fascinated me, and part of one of the reasons why I like GCM so much. But I also was very fortunate enough to serve as the president and co-president of RITAGA for 2 years. So that was just an absolutely fantastic opportunity. And that was sort of what led into my job at Flash Reproductions. I remember my co-president at the time, we were trying to figure out how to secure more sponsorship and how to get more industry interested in supporting RITAGA directly at the time. So we ended up reaching out to a few different places and really sort of felt like we got along with Flash online in our initial conversations, and we ended up pitching to them in person. And it was a fantastic experience just to kind of go out there and have a little slide deck prepped, feel like we were really out there doing something. And it was a great experience for the both of us. And they ended up sponsoring us for 2 years and helping us with the production of the journal. And it was just a fantastic opportunity. And they ended up offering me a job after, well, when it became time. But funny enough, I didn't actually do an internship either. So I didn't do a concentration, I didn't do a minor, and I didn't do an internship because I went on exchange. So I think that it is very, very difficult for me to pick what was sort of my favorite and most memorable part of GCM, because I've been so fortunate and so lucky to have my feet in so many different areas and be able to experience all these different things, to really understand a lot about myself and what I enjoyed and what I would continue to enjoy in a role moving forward.
Yeah, I think you really sort of constantly evaluated what you want to be doing as a student and like engaged in a way that I wish I would have made the time for as a student, no, this is the thing that I want to get out of my education, so I'm going to pursue it. I would definitely, concentration or not, pursue specific projects the way Jeremy did when he was a student at GCM. This is great to see. Caitlin, you were also in RITAGA. Am I remembering that right?
I was in like a little bits of everything. So I did colloquium for a year. I was Explore was the big one.
There it is. Okay, it was Explore. This
smaller, but it was mainly like focused on networking. Like you guys were talking about the community, and I was like having flashbacks of all the random stuff I ended up like doing. Oh my gosh.
Caitlin volunteered for everything, every tour, every outside event.
Somehow, like, printing process was probably my worst class in the first year. And I was doing some simulation thing for Martin at some point, like a competition. Like, it's just the way that GCM just encourages you to take up space. Like, you guys made us do everything. We have to go to trade shows. We have to like talk to people. We had to make business cards. Like, and there was always like invitations to actual industry events where you talk to people that are, in the doing industry work and like willing to talk to students. It's kind of insane. Like, I got to go to Chicago, Florida, Germany, Niagara Falls with a bunch of international color consortium people. It was just so random, but it was great. And back to like community is like, we did all our individual projects, but we were all suffering together. Like, it was basically all like a collaboration. Even if we weren't sharing work, we were like sharing just like our moods and our experiences.
Okay, those are all like such great memories. Obviously, I had my hand in picking some really engaged and involved students. So you guys have so much to share. I could talk about this for hours and hours in here, but we have 10 minutes left. So I'm trying to think of what would be the golden goose egg nugget thing that everybody wants to know. I see, Amanda, you want to know a little bit about Jeremy's exchange experience. Can we spend a couple minutes talking about that? Because I think it's a great opportunity.
For sure. I'm happy to go into it. And I think that exchange was just such a wonderful opportunity and a wonderful experience. Just to preface everything, I ended up doing a semester abroad in Germany. So I was studying at the Hochschule der Medien in Stuttgart. It was absolutely beautiful city, absolutely wonderful institution itself. And while I was there, they sort of broke up their academic system into a number of minors is what they called them. So I guess technically that's my minor, Natalia. There you go. My minor is advertising and publishing is what it was. But it was just a really, really amazing opportunity to be lumped in with a bunch of other international students actually who were traveling to Germany from all over the world. So we had people from South America, we had people from Europe, we had people from the United States, we had people from Asia as well. So it was just a fantastic opportunity to learn together with those people and really put yourself out of your comfort zone. So I think that that's the number one thing that I will say about exchange is that as a student and as a young adult and as somebody who wants to get into an industry where there is a lot of uncertainty and there is a lot of challenge and change constantly, being able to understand about your comfort zone and understand what you really thrive in is so important. And I think that exchange in particular was really formative in that sense to me. But I'm always happy to talk more about the specifics of exchange if you're wanting to know more. So feel free to reach out at any time.
And we try to sort of make exchange like a really safe experience. So you get interviewed to make sure that you're ready for an exchange. Martin is the person who normally handles exchange, and the exchange partnerships are growing. So there's more and more places that you're able to go. I know lots of people are excited about South Korea is now an option for as an exchange partner. I know it's very neat. Okay, so here's the thing that I'm going to ask you to sort of close us off. Is I'm going to ask you each to share something that you found surprising about the program, about having been a student in the program, or surprising about now being a graduate. I let you decide which direction you take the question. And while you think on it for a second, I'm going to get my amazing, fantastic, most lovely human colleague, Jay Wong, to help us to help us with a little giveaway, because unbeknownst to you, those of you who came today, you are in a draw to win a prize. So if you could spin the wheel, look at how ready you were, Jay. Without any words, you're spinning the wheel. Let's see. All right. So Beverly, yay. Okay, so tell her what she's won. Beverly, I'm gonna email you after our session today, and I'm gonna let you pick one of 3 prizes. So we have like cool tech gadgety toys, and I'll let you choose one. So I'll be in touch for sure. And that's enough thinking time for each of you, I think, to close us off with your final surprise for the day. Okay, so something surprising about GCM or about postgraduate life. Elisa, you first.
Cool. I think the thing that was most surprising was actually how practical GCM ended up being in general, because it's advertised as, or at least the curriculum that I went to heavily advertised as a print program, which is and specifically to go into the print industry. And a lot of what we did in that program for that curriculum was so niche and so specific that in the middle of it, I did find myself genuinely wondering, when am I ever going to actually use this? When am I ever going to need to use measuring metallic inks, the color measurement of metallic inks in my day-to-day life? And hilariously, those were the exact skills and things that I needed to do in my actual day-to-day career. So doing things like, and so it seems very niche, but it's actually very transferable. You just need to phrase it in that way. And I'm actually gonna, because I saw Beverly also had a question about interviewing and getting confidence for something you think you're qualified for, but or might not be clearly qualified for, but I think you can learn, which is that so much of 90% of jobs are transferable skills. You can learn so many hard skills on the job, but transferable skills are kind of the basis for what you need to succeed in a career, I think, at least. And you get a lot of that at GCM. So, and you just need to be able to communicate that clearly. And also you need to try. So I feel very strongly about this because I've also been now on the other side of the interview table a bunch of times. And I've seen that there's also a huge gap in confidence sometimes in how people communicate, specifically from like women of color, people of color, and marginalized people. And that's huge. And I can see that they're actually qualified on paper, but it's not coming across. I think you just need to try and practice. because you are qualified. It might not be really clear. There's a lot of societal things telling you that you're not, but I promise you, you probably are. So that said, yeah, I ended up using things like industry standards in my day-to-day job, figuring out how to measure what is essentially an art in my day-to-day job, learning how to talk to people, learning how to automate workflows. That's huge, especially now that I'm in a tech industry. All that stuff, I truly didn't think I would use outside of the program, but those ended up being the most key things I needed to use when I got out into my actual career.
Oh, those are great. Caitlin, I'm going to throw it to you next because I think you're going to pick up a thread there maybe.
Yeah, I was basically like thinking everything. We do such different jobs, but I think I took the same amount of things. Like I said, printing processes, worst class the first year, and somehow I am talking technical with printers, and I never thought, like, the whole 4 years I'm like, when am I going to learn this? Like, why do I need to know ink opacity? Like, but that's what I'm doing. And also because of that, because of the relationship and the community, like I was able to, ask questions and try to insert some knowledge. And like, oh yeah, we did this in school. And they're like, oh, did you? Why? kind of thing. And not only that is like the way the people were structured, I was able to kind of, because my job is very corporate, I kind of brought a bit of that into this corporate office environment, like, because I felt comfortable doing that at school. So I'm like, what's the worst that could happen if I do it here? Is like, now I'm doing some committees. I was at some point unofficially the birthday person in the office, like just trying to push how far I can decorate people's desks for their birthday. And it's all because, like, while we were learning, we felt good no matter like how scary or like how hard the next project is, because we were comfortable. And surprisingly, I don't know how it happened, but I managed to incorporate that into this kind of more corporate lifestyle.
You guys are making me miss you. Oh my goodness. GCM, so good. It's so good. Okay, Marianne, tell us most surprising thing, either about graduation or about GCM, your time with GCM.
I think I want to echo everything that Lisa, Caitlin said. I think the scariest class that I had to take, this is a really strange pick, was GCM 375, which was project management for, it might have not been project management, actually. It was something about project management, but essentially just how to market yourself when you're getting ready for internship. And I thought, hey, I'm confident, I can talk to people, I'll be fine, right? But then fast forward to 6 months ago when I was searching for a job and I had no idea what to do, I found myself going back to the notes that Trung wrote on the board. He was saying, hey, don't settle, don't do this, because you have value. You might not know it, you might not feel like it, but you do. And I feel like the biggest takeaway that I got from GCM was to find a mentor and find someone that cares about you, so that when you're doing these interviews that you don't feel prepared for, when you're doing things you feel like you can't do, you can. And that's applicable more than ever because I'm the youngest person at my company. And so this was also an app that I had like used for like a year within my communities. And so I did not think I was ready to work for a major company like this. And I just didn't know it at the time. So to take that risk is something that GCM really instilled in me, that, the community is so supportive that they tell you that you can do anything, and then you do, and you don't realize that you could until you actually get there. So I think that's the most surprising thing about GCM, that they'll build you up so much because they believe in you and that you can actually do these things. So I love GCM for that. And I think that's almost my time. Yeah.
Amazing. That's lovely. Okay, Jeremy, you're going to close the show with the most surprising thing from you.
Oh, geez. Well, I think it really comes back to what Elise was saying about the transferability, and about like that in particular has been such a thing for me, because I feel like my roles have all been so different from each other, that being able to have such a breadth of experience within GCM, where I know it's often said that it is an inch deep and a mile wide, really kind of gives you a little bit of that confidence going into a new experience where you're saying, hey, I might not be an expert in this, but I did a little bit of it. So there is something there. And that little seed you can absolutely water and you can watch it grow into something beautiful. So I think that that transferability is the number one thing that really surprised me, because in everything I've done, both within GCM and outside of GCM, that has been definitely a through line.
You guys, this has been so incredible. I could talk to you for another 16 hours, if not longer. It's so lovely to hear all of your experiences and the fact that you had, that the school had an impact and that you remember us well and that it's all going good and everybody's okay. Thank you. Thank you for spending the time with us. Thank you for those of you who joined us for spending the time with us. I'll stick around maybe for another 3 minutes if anyone's got any questions, but we'll sort of close the show almost entirely on time. Let's look at the chat. Any last sort of burning questions for us? This is the awkward way because of course you have to type. You can turn your mics on if you're feeling brave, if you've got a question. I'm so glad it was helpful. It's always helpful to talk to others about their experiences, isn't it? Yay. Okay. I don't see anything coming through. You guys, thank you for being mentors to this wonderful group, and thank you for connecting back with us and sharing your experiences. We will have to do it again because I loved this so much. Maybe next time in person, and then I will lure you with food. Have an excellent rest of your day, everybody.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Ciao, ciao, ciao.
Thanks so much. Have a good night. Bye.
Bye.